Imagine standing on a bridge where the air is thick with tension, watching a narrow stretch of water that dictates the heartbeat of the global economy. We often look at the world's critical maritime choke points and see routine, but beneath that calm, the reality is a high-stakes digital game of cat and mouse. Consider a sophisticated naval destroyer silently slicing through these crowded lanes, unaware that it has already been tagged and analyzed by unseen eyes on the shore. For the observers inland, this isn't just a ship, it is a complex data point they have been modeling and rehearsing for years in total secrecy. They wait for the perfect moment when the density of civilian tankers will provide just enough cover to mask their sudden, aggressive, and synchronized maneuvers. But they are operating under a fatal assumption, believing that the rules of engagement are tethered to the slow pace of human political hesitation. The second those radar arrays lock on, they unknowingly flip a switch that triggers a pre-programmed machine-speed response system they haven't even begun to comprehend. What starts as a quiet, routine patrol instantly shifts into a terrifyingly efficient, automated dance where the outcome is determined long before the first shot is fired. You see, the modern combat information center doesn't wait for human debate when the threat threshold is crossed. It moves with the cold, absolute certainty of physics. Before a single missile even manages to climb above the horizon, the ship's electronic warfare suite is already pouring chaos into the attacker's guidance systems. It's like an invisible wall going up in an instant, distorting the digital signals and forcing the incoming threats to lose their way in the vast expanse of the sea. This isn't a scene from a movie. It is a calculated, brutal exercise in resource conservation and tactical superiority, managed by an integrated, multi-layered defensive web. As the threats tighten their path toward the hull, the ship automatically prioritizes them, assigning precise, layered interceptors to ensure absolutely zero wasted effort. Meanwhile, the ship maintains a perfectly steady, unbothered course, which is the ultimate display of psychological dominance over an enemy expecting a chaotic reaction. By staying predictable, the ship essentially strips the attackers of their only advantage, the confusion and disorder they desperately hope to create to hide their movements. While the interceptors are neutralizing the airborne danger, the ship's back-end systems are already performing a surgical autopsy on the entire offensive network. Every pulse of radar energy emitted by the enemy is treated as a breadcrumb, leading the defenders' automated strike packages right back to their source. It happens so quickly that the attackers don't even realize they have been identified as targets, while their own missiles are still searching for their terminal lock. The transition from being a defensive platform to an offensive force is seamless, a pivot that occurs at the speed of modern processor cycles. Within minutes, the sky is filled with a counterwave of cruise missiles, each one programmed to erase the command nodes that just initiated the threat. This isn't just about destroying launchers, it's about systematically dismantling the architecture of their command and control infrastructure in one coordinated, overwhelming movement. The strike is timed to arrive across the coastline simultaneously, ensuring that the adversary's response time is entirely bypassed and their defense becomes impossible to organize. Behind the scenes, specialized aircraft are flooding the spectrum with noise, effectively blinding the enemy and severing any remaining lines of communication they might have held. As the coastal radar hubs go dark one by one, the entire operation moves from an active engagement into a phase of total, permanent systemic failure. It is a masterclass in layered, multi-domain destruction, where air, surface, and subsurface assets act in a terrifying harmony to remove a regional capability. When the final impact occurs, the silence that descends upon the coastline is the only measure you need to understand that the threat has been neutralized. The attackers wanted to force a decision at a critical point, but they only succeeded in inviting their own infrastructure to be erased from the map. They now face a reality where their attempts to project power have backfired, leaving them with nothing but wreckage and the haunting realization of their failure. Any future attempt to rebuild these networks will be carried out under the watchful, unblinking gaze of a system that has already mapped their every potential move. The lesson here is that modern naval power is not measured by the size of the guns, but by the speed and integration of the decision-making network. We are entering an era where human hesitation is increasingly viewed as a weakness, replaced by machines that can calculate the cost of survival in microseconds. The Strait of Hormuz remains a critical artery, but the credibility of those who tried to choke it has been completely and irrevocably shattered in one afternoon. Markets will react, risk models will shift, and the world will finally see that the rules of maritime engagement have fundamentally changed in the shadow of technology. This incident isn't just a story about a ship, it is a glimpse into the future of conflict, where the line between peace and total destruction is razor thin. It reminds us that there is no such thing as a limited strike on a modern task force. There is only the swift, crushing answer of the system itself. We see now that probing the defenses of a modern integrated force is no longer a strategic maneuver, but a guarantee of immediate and irrevocable consequence. The arrogance of the planning on the shoreline was met with the cold, hard reality of an adversary that was always 3 steps ahead in the digital domain. When you try to play a game of speed against a machine that processes the world in fractions of a second, you don't stand a chance. The psychological impact on the command structure will persist long after the smoke clears, as they realize their entire doctrine was rendered obsolete in minutes. We are looking at a permanent shift in how maritime dominance is maintained, moving away from human ego and toward cold, algorithmic dominance. It's a sobering thought that the most complex weapon systems on Earth are now essentially autonomous in their ability to detect, assess, and delete threats. This situation highlights how geography, which used to be the ultimate protector for coastal forces, has now become a cage for those who rely on outdated tactics. Everything that made the shore a threat, the radar sites, the mobile launchers, the command bunkers, became the very thing that ensured their swift discovery. The data was there, the patterns were recognized, and the response was executed with a precision that borders on the divine.
It is an extraordinary example of how preparation, when combined with superior technology, creates a wall that no amount of raw volume can hope to penetrate. If you want to understand how the world works today, look past the political posturing and look directly at the math of these defensive systems. The numbers tell the true story. The probability of success for an uncoordinated attack in these waters is effectively trending towards 0. As we move forward, the gap between those who can manage this level of complexity and those who cannot will continue to widen drastically. We are witnessing the end of an era where traditional land-based threats could effectively challenge high-end naval formations in constricted spaces. This story serves as a template, a cautionary tale for anyone bold enough to challenge the integrity of a modern networked defensive architecture. The efficiency of the counterstrike proves that these forces are not just sitting around, they are constantly refining their ability to project power anywhere. The logistical hubs that were decimated were the true center of gravity, and their removal guarantees that there will be no second chance. It's hard to imagine the shock within those command centers as they watch their entire capability be dismantled in real time, completely unable to react. The coordination required for such a multi-layered strike is immense, yet it was executed with the fluidity of a well-rehearsed performance. Each platform, from the submarines deep below to the aircraft high above, knew its role in the larger tapestry of this tactical response. The effectiveness of the electronic warfare assets really cannot be overstated, as they acted as the invisible hand guiding the entire engagement. It forces us to ask, what happens when even faster, more automated systems are introduced into this already volatile mix? The trajectory of military evolution is clear, and it is moving toward a future where human input is relegated to oversight rather than direct control. This reality requires a fundamental change in how we perceive regional influence and the reach of sovereign naval power. The reliance on civilian cover, once a clever trick, is now easily bypassed by advanced sensors that can distinguish between a tanker and a target instantly. The clarity of the data allows for this precision, eliminating the fear of collateral damage that previously hindered decisive actions. It brings us to the conclusion that in the modern battlefield, information parity is the single most important metric for survival. If your sensors aren't as good as the enemy's, you aren't just at a disadvantage, you are essentially already invisible to your own command. This is a cold, hard look at the mechanics of power, and it provides a stark reminder of why these systems are developed in the first place. There is a deep technical beauty in how these systems interlink, forming a defensive shield that seems almost impossible to challenge. As we analyze these events, we have to recognize that the technological gap is only growing, making the world a very different place than it was even a decade ago. We should be impressed, if not slightly intimidated, by the sheer scale of the engineering effort required to pull off such a feat. It isn't about being a warmonger, it is about understanding the reality of the landscape we live in and the tools that define it. This is the new baseline for maritime security, a high watermark that others will have to try to reach, though likely unsuccessfully. It really makes you wonder what other capabilities are lurking in the shadows, waiting for their own moment to be tested. The speed of innovation in this sector is breathtaking, and we are just beginning to see the implications of this for global strategy. Every part of this engagement was a calculated trade-off, a balance between preserving magazine depth and ensuring the maximum impact of every strike. The fact that the ship didn't even have to break its stride is the ultimate insult to the intelligence of the attackers. They failed to realize they were fighting not just a ship, but an entire global network focused on a single tiny point on the map. This is the definition of a force multiplier, the ability to turn a defensive stance into a devastating offensive capability in an instant. It leaves us with a lot of questions about the future of deterrence and whether or not it is even still possible in this digital age. If you find this breakdown fascinating, it's because it hits the intersection of human strategy and unyielding mechanical logic. It is the kind of analysis that changes the way you view the news, especially when you understand the mechanics hiding behind the headlines. We keep digging because there is always more to the story than what the public is told by the mainstream media. These technical details are the real story, and they offer a much clearer picture of the world's actual power dynamics. I hope this deep dive has provided you with a new perspective on what it means to project power in the 21st century. The world is getting more dangerous, but it is also getting more transparent if you know where to look. We will keep stripping away the noise to bring you the cold, calculated facts of these global events. The complexity of these systems will only increase, and we will be here to translate them into plain English for you. It's about being informed in a way that allows you to see through the fluff and focus on the mechanics of our strategic landscape. There is no guesswork involved when you follow the data and the logic of the engineers who build these things. The takeaway here is clear. The era of testing the limits of major naval powers is over, and the consequences are now absolute. We are moving toward a future where the margin for error is non-existent, and the speed of response is the only thing that matters. If you enjoyed this level of detail, there are plenty more topics waiting for us to unravel. The landscape of modern warfare is changing every day, and we are just beginning to see the implications of this for global strategy. Stick around because we aren't slowing down with these analytical breakdowns anytime soon. There are so many other technological marvels and strategic puzzles that deserve this kind of attention. Your engagement helps us keep this content going, ensuring we can continue to provide this type of in-depth, no-hype analysis. Thanks for taking this walk through the tactical reality of the Strait with me today, and welcome to 7 Information. It has been a wild ride, but it's essential for understanding the heartbeat of our modern world. Keep your eyes on the horizon because things are moving faster than we ever imagined they could be. I'll be back soon with another deep dive that will probably make you look at the news in a whole different light. There is always more behind the curtain, and I'm committed to helping you see what's really going on. Thanks for being part of this community, and I look forward to our next deep dive session. Catch you in the next one as we continue to break down the mechanics of the modern world with James Military Talks.